Hi, I'm Megan Andrew, and I'm so excited to introduce you to the Friendly Flora Mini Bundle, new for June 2025. This lovely bundle includes everything you see here: a 3x4 stencil, a 3x4 stamp, and a die sentiment. If you were an attendee at Winter Retreat, this is one of the gifts given in your boxes. Let's take a look at that sentiment die set. The die set includes the outer shape as well as the inner plate that cuts out the letters so that you can cut out the background shape to back your letters, and you can choose to inlay the centers of those letters like the O and the D or not for a more modern look. The Friendly Flora stamp is just under 3x4 inches, and it was designed to use in multiple ways. So you can stamp it on its own, in a strip, or all over your card front. And I'm going to show you how to do that here. First, I've grabbed my turnabout jig and I've kept the protective cover on. I am taking the protective covers off of my stamp and I'm using that X to mark this center point. I'm going to put the stamp in the upper left-hand corner of that A2 section, keeping the stamp hanging off of the top of my card. It's important here to get the stamp as close as you can to that center point on both axes so that your pattern can look seamless. I'm going to pick up the stamp with the top of my MISTI, then take off the protective covering off of my jig and put my piece of A2 white cardstock down. Now I'm going to ink up my stamp using Rainforest ink. And then I'm going to stamp, making sure that my turnabout jig is in the corner of my MISTI. So now my top left quadrant has been stamped, and you can repeat this as many times as you like until you get a nice image. Keeping the stamp in place, I am going to flip the turnabout jig 180 degrees so that the next time I stamp, it will still stamp in the upper left quadrant. I'm just going to repeat the same process again to stamp that design. At this stage, you have 2 quadrants stamped on opposite corners, and it's time to clean off your stamp because we're going to be replacing your stamp on the opposite side. Making sure that your stamp is fully dry before placing it down, place the stamp in the upper right-hand quadrant with your MISTI in the corner, being sure that you're getting as close as possible to the other side while not touching your leaves. And you can really see this image through the stamp. Then you'll pick up your stamp with your MISTI door and stamp again. Once you're happy with that image in the upper right corner, it's time to flip your jig again 180 degrees so that you can stamp that final quadrant. Always before stamping, make sure that your jig has not moved and it is fully in the corner so that your pattern will line up. Remove your jig from the MISTI and gently push down on the sides to release your paper. And that's how easy it is to create an all-over pattern with the Friendly Flora stamp. Once you have your pattern, it's just as easy to use the coordinating stencil to color in your background. Here I've placed the stencil in the upper left-hand quadrant and I've masked off the edges of the stencil with tape. I'm starting off with Sprout here. I'm going to be using 3 different colors, so I'm focusing Sprout on the center of the card, working out with Juniper, and finally moving to the edge of the card with Fig. This is a gorgeous color combination, but there are so many possibilities with the Friendly Flora stencil. Before moving my stencil, I've wiped it off to clean it, and now I'm placing it in the upper right-hand quadrant of my card front, making sure that I mask off those edges again. I'm going to follow the same steps as before, starting with Sprout in the center of my card, working my way toward the edge with Juniper, and out to the edges with Fig, allowing those colors to mix together. I'm following the same method for the lower left quadrant, and finally on the lower right quadrant. Now let's take a look at that full stamped and blended panel. It is just beautiful. Here are 2 more card examples using the Friendly Flora Bundle. On this one, I stamped the design twice in a column using black ink and then blended with Sprout, Juniper, and Peacock. The sentiment was created with Sprout and Juniper. On this card, I stamped with Pebble, which gave it more of a no-line look and less contrast. I ink blended with Grasshopper, Watermelon, and Creamsicle. I cut the sentiment from Creamsicle, but then inlaid the word friend using Watermelon before layering that with another piece of avocado cardstock. This new Friendly Flora mini bundle is now available, so be sure to check out the Concord and 9th shop to see the product and more ideas.